have you ever wondered why some Filipino authors seem to thrive in the writing and, publishing community here in the Philippines? They seem to thrive more in their own social bubble. But when it comes to the indie authors, especially those who are not part of the Wattpad scene, they have to forge their paths in an entirely different way. What about those Wattpad stories that are actively, constantly violating the Wattpad guidelines, but they don't seem to be taken down? Buckle up, because today I would like for you and me to discuss that here in this video, because right now you and I are going to sink in deeper into the Filipino Wattpad authors world, as well as the Filipino indie published authors world. Right, but just before I start this whole shebang, this is BookTube. BookTube is a subculture community dito sa YouTube kung saan ang mambabasa ay nagre-react tungkol sa mga kwentong kanyang binasa para sa future na mambabasa. Ikaw yon. If you are one of the Wattpad authors or you are an indie author, please note that this video is not meant to hate, berate, humiliate, or cause or drama sa inyo at sa community nyo. Frankly speaking, you and I are just here to talk about the stories and the books and the community in general. Right, let me just put my hair up because there we go. Yeah, this has just been a topic that I just thought of a little while ago because I'm actually reading some manuscripts right now from international authors. There's really a stark difference between them and then this side of the writing community. And I actually checked on my email right now, and I tried digging up all of the emails that some of my subscribers, as well as from the people from my other social media pages, TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook, they sent me, their feelings, their emotions about some issues or some concerns that they have. And I started digging those up. They also have a lot of opinions, which are relevant into this topic. So I would like to share those with you. So I have my screen up right here. So every time I'm looking down right here, it means I'm reading and, I'm relaying the message to you. So first of all, let's talk about the writing style. So a lot of Wattpad authors, they tend to cater to the younger audience. So they have a certain demographic that they really cater to, which means a lot of their stories are actually pretty fast-paced. It's a lot of emotions. It's a lot of trope-centered stories. So you've got the billionaire romances. You have the taguan ng anak, or what do you call that? The teenage pregnancy and pregnancy out of wedlock, those kinds of stories. And then, of course, it's not just all about that. There are still some hidden gems within the Filipino Wattpad community. On the flip side, we also have these indie authors. The indie authors tend to experiment more on their own audiences. They have more flexibility when it comes to the genre, when it comes to the themes of their stories, and then, of course, the narrative structures that they use in their stories. They are not restricted strictly into the Wattpad tropes or the Wattpad trends. So in a way, when you start reading a lot of indie Filipino published stories, you would begin to notice the stark difference when it comes to their world building, the complex characters that their plot has, and then of course the ever unconventional plots that they also use. So both approaches do have their own strengths. Like I said, they cater to different audiences and readers. See, majority of the Wattpad authors, they focus on immediate emotional connections, while indie authors often prioritize literary depth and niche storytelling. Now, when it comes to local publishing, some Filipino Wattpad authors tend to collaborate with the local publishing industry or even with Wattpad books, like their own partnership with the local publishers. They want that discovered status. Most of them often see the traditional publishing as the epitome of their success, the career. Indie authors, however, they're more entrepreneurial. Like, they handle everything. Editing, to hiring a cover designer, to hiring their book designer, layout artist, proofreaders, even to the part about the marketing. They self-publish through platforms such as, for an example, Amazon Kindle. And then they also embrace the creative freedom that that particular platform has. Sometimes they would also go to a lot of these indie publishers here in the Philippines. They would like hire them, or they're gonna work with them, and then the rest is history. Now, let's talk about critics. This is the part where it gets a little bit more tricky, darling. A lot of Wattpad authors can be resistant when it comes to creative criticism. A lot of them sees it as a sort of bashing. They would view that as something negative and would encourage some of their community to swarm them with negativity. And then the fans, right? Like not all of them, not all of us, when specific stories that a lot of us really like, really love, when we hear someone talk negatively about that particular story, some of us would begin to be like, oh, what do you mean by that? Blah, 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 blah. And then we're going to start attacking them like, are we not allowed to say the things that we think about the stories? The phrase, don't ruin my creative vision, is real on Wattpad. Madami po sila, or we're just gonna say it in English. There's a lot of authors on Wattpad who gives excuses such as, my story is just fiction. If you don't like my stories, you can go. And this reader, the one who messaged me, I think their whole email is actually quite interesting. Like I always said, a bashing comment is different from a creative criticism, and not everyone is out there to get you. They also mentioned the issue of bandwagoning. Now, if you don't know what bandwagoning is, it's a group of people who are just reactive and really don't have any idea what's going on. But since a lot of their co-community members are reacting in such a way, they would pile up also to that. So a lot of bandwagoning, a lot of hate comes from uninformed readers. And this email, the person who sent me this email, is telling that side of the story, and they think that that is very unfair and very immature of some of the Wattpad readers in the platform. If you are a reader from the Filipino Wattpad community, what do you want to say to this email? What do you want to say? Do you agree with that? Can you type it in the comments? I really just want to know. Now let's talk about how indie authors react to their critics. Now, indie authors, a lot of them are actually surprisingly, very open to criticisms. They actually welcome that. They actually ask most of us to, hey, can you just leave me a review? Can you tell me what you think I should change? Blah, 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 blah. So they have that openness. They have that maturity when it comes to asking people, hey, can you tell me something? What do you think about the story? What do you think about the characters? What do you think I can improve for my next story? Nandun na kaagad yung mentality nila. What do you think should I do for my next story? I think a lot of indie authors, they realize that constructive criticism is also helpful when it comes to the sales of their books. They can take what's good and then leave out the rest. And it's not about them having nerves of steel. They just really know what they want, and they're really open to all sorts of criticism because they see the value in that. Whereas some, not all, some Wattpad authors, some Filipino Wattpad authors, they're close to that because maybe, just maybe, because their community is a set of bubble. They're closed in a bubble. And some Filipino Wattpad authors, they are, they constantly receive praises for their story. Someone from my email, wait, let me just look for that email. Someone from my email actually said this, madami daw, or there's a lot of Filipino Wattpad authors who wait who are just in it for the fame. They want their egos boosted. They think they are celebrities, and there's not a lot of focus into the development of their skills in writing and their revisions and editing and the quality of the work that they're putting out on Wattpad. Which, okay, I can see that. But what do you think? Whoa, what do you think about that? Now let's talk about the sales part of this conversation. So Wattpad authors, since they already have a platform, there's a sort of advantage, right, into their success. There is such a thing on Wattpad where some authors get their stories monetized. So they get their stories monetized via the Wattpad paid stories program. However, there's a fine print. Not always do these audience, even if they do have like millions of readers on the platform, it does not really translate to the book buyers. Even if this Wattpad authors, they have like thousands and even millions of readers who reads their stories online. Once the book version of their stories comes out as a published book, it doesn't necessarily translate to a direct sales because they already read the stories online. Since it's a sort of financial issue, some of these readers, especially when the publisher cuts the stories into parts, they find it greedy of that publisher. Like, they would often clamor online and say, why would you cut the book if the story on Wattpad is just like a couple of chapters? I think that's greedy. I think it's blah, 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 blah. And then another thing that a lot of readers would also say is that most of the books now that are currently available on the market are too expensive. Some of them would say along the lines of, this book, the quality of the book is not on par with the price, which is also something that I've noticed myself, is that a lot of these local publishing houses would price their books at such a high amount for like a standard book. So the price would be along the premium side of things. Let's say the price of the book will be at, I don't know, like 1,000 or 1,500 or 500 pesos. Not everyone has that amount. And they would even market the books as something as a premium, when in reality, when you actually have that book in your hands, it's not even premium quality. It's just a mediocre quality. So a lot of readers agree to that. Some publishers, not all of them, some publishers are getting greedier and greedier when the quality that they produce are not that good. And that sort of thing needs to change. And that's exactly the reason why some readers would opt to buying counterfeits and purchasing illegal soft copies of the stories that they like. Okay, indie authors. Now, when it comes to indie authors, most of them would really work hard in order to push their books in the market. They would often build first a loyal community of readers who they know would actively purchase any story or any book that they would come up with. Plus, again, these indie authors have control of the pricing of their books, which helps them, it helps them reach to a wider audience for their stories, their work. Now, as for the community building, Wattpad authors thrive mostly in the ecosystem of their social media platforms. Or, being on Wattpad, like that creates a community already in itself. So they are connecting and like communicating with their readers directly on the platform. Sometimes they would urge their community to, hey, follow me on this, on that, on this and that. And then they would have this like mini group chat where they have this sort of, hey, I just uploaded a story, I just updated this chapter, blah, 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 blah. Whereas indie authors, they do have some sort of leverage too on their social media. They have book clubs, they have like their own GCs as well. And this is something that I realized not a lot of Wattpad authors do. They don't exert effort into creating newsletters. Why? What? That's actually quite genius of indie published authors. Because here's the thing, newsletters are actually one of the best ways that you can foster to your own community. I mean, okay, here's the thing, both strategies work, but indie authors have a more diverse and more creative ways to reach that audience that they like. Okay, so I saw the email that I actually do want to discuss also in this video. So the email goes something along the lines of addressing the Wattpad guidelines. On Wattpad, or just like in any other platform, they have the certain guidelines for all of their users to follow. But according to this emailer, Wattpad guidelines, recently stories that are actively violating content rules, such as using explicit themes, for example, the smaller viewers or the smaller audience that this Wattpad author has, their stories would be taken down. Whereas those in the paid service, so those in the paid program on Wattpad, even if their stories also have the same genre, well, not really the same, but almost the same plot, they have explicit themes in their story that actively and obviously violates the Wattpad guidelines, those aren't taken down. Those are still up. So now, most of the Wattpad authors and readers on the platform, they're also asking, hang on a sec, why did my story got taken down and their story didn't? Is it because they have a bigger platform? Like, what is this? What is this favoritism? There's a certain double standards that actually frustrates a lot of smaller or rather emerging aspiring authors on Wattpad. And rightfully so. Because Wattpad claims to enforce all of these guidelines equally, but the lack of transparency is concerning. Is it favoritism or is it an algorithm oversight? I don't know. Let me know in the comments. What do you think? Wattpad and indie authors both have their own unique challenges. They both contribute to our literary culture in different ways. But whether you are a reader or a writer, I think it's important to just support our Filipino authors and Filipino aspiring writers. Whether they're trending on Wattpad or they are self-publishing their works, what's really important is that we take away the prejudice and continuing to support each other, because both of you, or rather all of you, are actually aiming for one thing: inspiring more people to read. Please, I'd like to hear your thoughts in the comments section. What do you think? Are there anything that you want to say to these authors, indie and Wattpad authors? Don't forget, and I can't believe I'm saying this, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if that's your thing. If it's not your thing, that's totally fine as well. Right, and it's now 4:29 a.m., so I gotta go.